I never should have stopped. He would walk for hours beside the highway or sit across his hiking backpack next to on the ramps with his thumb out with a big grin spread across his scruffy, dirty face. It would be easy to spot him in the crowd, even easier standing lonesome to the side of the road. His overgrown curly brown hair would dangle right a bit above his eye. He was tall, about 6'4", I'd say, and weighing about 190 pounds, with freckles sprinkled over his sharp-featured face. There were two things about him that, and most I remember vividly, being his pair of piercing ember eyes that would lash himself onto your own whenever you're talking to him. The second was in his shoes. Everything about him seems dirty and worn from the way he traveled where he witnessed, but his high-top, generic white-toed chucks looked a bit almost branded except for the bottoms. They were covered in dirt with black specks, which should have been really expected after hours of walking in the dust and dirt. His first appearance I shared with him was on January 30th, 1992. I was driving home on a highway one week from a visit with my newly brother in his home in Eureka. There he was, just walking in gusto and stepping along the California bluffs, with his thumbs sticking proud in the air. He looked so young, maybe in his early 20s, and so harmless that I pulled off the shoulder, only moments after seeing him. He ran up and I could see the rearview mirror, and of that great big smile he almost always seemed to have on. He tossed his backpack up to the bed of my truck and hopped into the passenger seat, thanking me and telling me how much he appreciated the ride. I turned to talk to him and was greeted with those wide spectacle eyes, already clamped onto my own gaze. "Where are you headed?" "Oh, nowhere in particular. You just take me to as far as you can, tolerating me having to sit with you." "Nowhere? Are you running away from something?" "Not from, too." "I see. Where to, then?" "I already said nowhere in particular. Just anywhere I hadn't seen, I guess." "All right, then." After this additional conversation, we let Johnny cash his guitar strums and the sounds off-road to take cover the waves. Almost immediately, he kicked in his dusty, clean chucks into my dash, stretched his body as far as the small space would allow, and closed his eyes. He wasn't asleep because he'd make the occasional movement, scratching his face or shifting his weight. I figured he was pretty experienced with the traveling with strangers, seeing as how he was comfortable enough to the dirty old unknown man's car interior and trustfully closed his eyes after doing it. My truck was already so dirty that he looked so tired that I didn't really mind anyway. There did seem a little bit off during that first few minutes of us meeting. Just like the small gestures he had made when talking, he had a way he looked at me, as if he was sizing me up, almost as if he was resented to me, just like the way he did look at me. I brushed it off as him being somewhat skeptical of the person he entrusted with his life to. We traveled with silence between us for a while, until he opened his eyes and asked about the furthest I have ever traveled. Over the course of our ride, we covered some subjects, ranging from how marijuana grows into a closet, is in a closet, to who our favorite teachers in middle school would. We'd become less of strangers to each other with each passing minute. So it was much of the idea of having to give off such negative vibes vanished, and I ended up offering him a place to stay that night. The exit I had to take was coming up, and I asked where he was going to that night. Being it was 7 p.m. already, he said he had nowhere to go and I couldn't live with myself, and didn't want to at least provide him with a full belly and a safe couch to sleep on, before shoving him back into the world all alone. We pulled up to my apartment complex, and when we were getting out, I noticed there were distinct footprints left by his shoes on the face of my dashboard. Right above the glove box, we were in the mild discussion that it was registered as an important to me at that moment. But still, it still somewhat bothered me because he didn't at least wipe them off. Being only dust, they only come off with some saliva and a quick rub. It came and went through my head. The next thing I knew, we were inside. I was showing him my place, so we were sitting down to some beer and eggs. Again, we began talking, listening to his stories, talking about the political state of our nation, comparing Blue Moon to Sam Adams. Then I remembered the shoes on my dash. "Hey, you do realize you left a mess all over my dashboard, right?" Yes, I know. You know you sounded like you meant to do it. Who said I didn't? Well, shit, that's sort of rude, I said with a chuckle in my voice. Not at all. As a matter of fact, you should feel honored that I did that. I guess you're right when they say most hitchhikers are lunatics. He laughed and looked in the distance. Now, who says that? Okay, now, I don't know whoever it is, I guess. Why should I feel honored? Okay, so now you know I've come across dozens of people who give me rides. You see, you and I clicked. Hell, you've invited me to stay at your place for living, which I'm endlessly grateful for. So again, I thank you. But not all the people that are nice enough to move me a couple miles, just nice enough to be completely worthy of having their heads kicked in. You know what I mean. He laughs at this after this and continues. Anyway, I always put up my feet and always have for as long as I can remember when I'm riding passenger. I always kick my feet up. Some people don't like it and tell me right away to put my feet down and wipe away any marks left. These people are also usually the total jerks. One time, I had a guy pick me up, drive me only about half a mile and kick me out because I put my feet up. He was yelling when I was trying to get out, saying I smell like shit and should go get a job, hippie scum, blah blah blah. He was a slimeball piece of shit and deserved anyway. Anyway, in short, because I know I must be rambling over. The cars I leave footprints are in my mindset as an embrace to remembrance to me, to those I had a positive experience with, and those I had a negative experiences with have no visible remembrance. So when you look at those footprints still there, you could think that man I was sure was lucky. It's that simple. He followed me with this whole loud bleach thing filling the room with the smell of beer and a burp sink. Well, I guess I should feel honored, huh? What did you mean when you said that guy totally deserved it? What? What I meant was he deserved not getting into my mark of remembrance. Haha, try to keep me up with me here, man. After this, we continued talking about everything once again. He could talk, and every word was worth listening to. And I was just thinking about how he never come across someone so young that it seemed to have so much wisdom and optimism, and he began acting strange again. In the middle of me talking, he began grinding his teeth and furrowing his brow. I could see a hint of cringe forming on his face, and his amber eyes watched my own. It's like something with him clicked on, or off. His legs started bouncing like he was getting impatient and was constantly trying to crack his knuckles. The conversation died soon after his behavior started, as he soon cut short with me and was giving me only a couple word responses. Despite this, I still thought he was a good kid and was just bipolar or something. In the morning, after another round of beer and eggs, I drove him to the highway, gave him a 20 and my phone number, and we said our goodbyes. I wished him luck on his adventures, and on the way back home, I wondered if I ever crossed paths with him again, while looking back and forth from the road to the dirt marks all over my dash. When I got home, I wiped those footprints off before going back inside. I certainly didn't need some scuff marks to remember that man. Not even a month passed before I received a phone call from him. He was calling from a payphone, a town over that sounded very frantic. He apologized for calling in a favor. Soon we parted ways, but said that he was in some real trouble, and that I was the only person he could think of to call. He just called a half an hour before I got off of work, around 2:30 p.m., so I told him he would have to wait till then. It sounded like he almost broke into tears after hearing that. He begged for me to hurry and just kept apologizing until I got off the phone with him. My mind was consumed with all day's work as to who he could possibly be in trouble with. Maybe he got into some gang shit or something and was fleeing from the law. As soon as I finished up my work, I drove straight there. It was about a 45-minute drive. When I got there, he told me to meet him. The parking lot in the middle of the school, he was nowhere to be found. I sat there for almost an hour waiting for him, before I finally turned my truck on and pulled out of the parking lot. I was down the street and about to turn when I looked in my rearview mirror and saw him running after me. He didn't have his bag, but he was wearing only his white t-shirt and some pants. Even some distance where I was at, I could see that he was wearing those fresh chucks. The another strange thing was he looked like he had blood running from his head. His head looked somewhat mutilated, but from the distance where I was at, I may have been mistaken. I quickly made a U-turn to pick him up, but as soon as I turned around, he vanished. He wasn't in the street or the sidewalk. I drove back to the parking lot and still sat there looking for him again. Even I got out and took a look back there in the area, but after another 20 whole minutes of waiting, I gave up again and forced myself to climb back into my truck to go home. The question still kept me for hours that night. What could he have possibly gotten himself into? Why did he take so long to finally show himself after frantic calling for help? Why was he bleeding? Was that blood? Where was his bag? After a month, he did the travel 45 minutes away from me. Those questions were he had answered just a week later, and new questions were born when I read the morning paper. In the town over, the serial murderer was beaten to death by a wrench in the middle school janitor, who had apparently come across him or from hurting a 12-year-old girl underneath the football field bleachers at knife point. The paper retorted that there had been a struggle and the serial killer ended up breaking up all the fingers in the janitor's left hand, cutting him right in his leg, gouging out the little girl's left eye. Therefore, a final blow to his temple ended for good. The man was wanted in several western states, and he was known for traveling middle schools via ganga band travel, abduct, murder children. He was also known for killing some of the people who gave him rides by stomping their heads and usually discomposing of the vehicle. He was supposedly responsible for 14 murders and over 30 accounts of violation. And still to this day, I am haunted with this image of his virile ember eyes staring into me just by this morning. 20 years after my encounters with him, I got in my truck and drove to work and was met with a dashboard covered dusty Chuck Taylor shoe prints.
What's up, my pretties? It's the Lion Queen here. I want to appreciate you all for tuning into this video, and I do appreciate you guys supporting my video by giving this video likes and stuff. If you really enjoyed this video, be sure to leave a like, comment and subscribe if you're new, ring the bell for notifications to when I upload so that way you guys will get updated for whenever I upload. If you want to follow me on Twitter or DeviantArt, feel free to leave a follow on those if you are interested in following me on those socials. If you want to support my backup channel, known as Miss Dark Shigo, feel free to subscribe to it, as a link to that will also be in the About page section. And with that being said, and that being the case, thank you so much for watching, my pretties, and as always, please stay pretty.